What is going on, Hive Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and in this video we're going to talk about how to combine walking with intermittent fasting to accelerate fat burning. Now, this has been heavily requested since I started doing videos about walking. People wanted to see if there was any kind of difference that can be made by implementing it or connecting walking with intermittent fasting. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and tackle today for you. So let's go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Alright guys, quickly before we start, this video is brought to you by yours truly, Fledge Fitness and the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. If you haven't gotten yours yet, what are you waiting for? Only $16.50. With an ergonomic design, aluminum handle, and swivel design, you can't go wrong with the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. You can click on the top right hand corner of this video or down in the description box below. And of course, as always guys, thank you for your support. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Walking with intermittent fasting. Now, the previous video that I did not too long ago, maybe about 2 videos ago, I talked about the things you can do to improve weight loss with walking specifically. And to get the best out of walking, those things that I mentioned still apply. So if you haven't seen that video, go take a look at it. It's a video with weight loss and walking. I'll go ahead and put it at the end screen at the end of this video. Now, when you implement intermittent fasting, you have to be smart about how you implement intermittent fasting. See, there are studies out there, many studies looking at fasted walking, and they're looking at the different variations of fasted walking versus fed walking. The only problem is that the majority of these studies do not look at fasted states that have created that metabolic switchover or are fully in that post-absorptive range. They mostly look at overnight fasting. But even though these studies are mainly looking at overnight fasting, fasted states, there are still beneficial elements that come from it. For example, a study that was found in 2018 looked into this with overnight fasted walking. The participants were told to walk for 2 days. Each walk was about 45 minutes. What they saw was that there were no differences in terms of appetite, but there was a difference in non-esterified fatty acids. Now, these derive itself from triglycerides. So what makes up the fatty acids in your fat cells, they come from it and deplete fat. Although to a lower extent, it still depletes fat. This was shown to be enhanced in the fasted group versus the fed group. Now, please understand that this study shows that in terms of normal fat burning, the normal fat oxidation process, you're burning fatty acids at a relatively even clip between the fed and fasted group. What's being enhanced is the non-esterified fatty acids, which does not necessarily make up most of the stored fat, but it is added on top of the normal fat burning that goes on from just doing your walk. So yes, adding a fasted system can definitely help you burn more fat, but you still have to control for calorie intake, because if there isn't anything for your body to burn, it isn't going to burn anything, or it will oxidize fat. But when it gets to the point where it's going to burn, it just returns that fat because it doesn't actually need all of that energy, because you're replenishing that energy throughout a 24-hour period. So yes, you got to be at a calorie deficit, you got to eat well, and a fasted walk can definitely help you. Now, keep in mind, this study did not look at someone in that metabolic switchover, which means 8 to 12 hours of being in a fasted state where you're in that post-absorptive state and you've switched over. Your insulin has gone down, glucose has depleted, your body is utilizing ketone bodies instead of glucose, which derives from fatty acids. 70% of the energy required for your brain is coming from those fatty acids that are being transferred into ketone bodies. That is a different story. Now, if we compile the fact that if you do a normal 7-hour, 8-hour fast and then get that additional result from the non-esterified fatty acids, if you compile that on top on the fact that walking is an aerobic exercise and you're mainly burning body fat, then the compounding elements start to pile up. But keep in mind though that when it comes to burning fat efficiently, that when you do these kind of workouts, The earlier you do them, the better. And this is because of the circadian rhythm. This is the biological and metabolic clock that your body works best at. If you're able to do your walk while still being in a fasted state, but then still eating within that time frame after you finish doing your walk, not too far from that time. Anytime from between 8 a.m. to about 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., you'll be within that early time restricted feeding time, and your metabolism will be working at a much better clip. It's just the emerging research that we have that continue to show that the earlier you do these things, the more sensitive the reaction is to the higher metabolic burn, more utilization of fatty acids. It all works better if you do it earlier rather than later. And of course, there are many different variations of intermittent fasting protocols that you can do. The recommended ones to do is nothing below 16 hours of fasting. So you want to do at least 16-8, which is 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating, but still try to make sure that you finesse the timing so that you're not eating anything later than 4 to 5 p.m. You want to make sure that your fasting window is ending at that time. Now, is that the nail on the coffin for people who do later eating windows as opposed to earlier eating windows? No. It's not the nail in the coffin. There's just studies, emerging research that's pushing towards early time restricted feeding because of the circadian rhythm and the metabolic effects of that. But do you have to do it? Absolutely not, because what's the most important thing is adherence. If you can stick to something and you're still going into a post-absorptive range, you're still going into that metabolic switchover, even if you eat earlier versus eating later. They're just studying more earlier eating, so we have more data and we're more confident with recommending earlier eating than recommending later eating. That's all it is. I just feel more comfortable telling you to eat earlier than telling you to eat late based on the data that we have. But we have data of people eating late and they still have benefits with intermittent fasting. Now, if you want to talk about walking and intermittent fasting, that data is more limited because it's more narrow, it's more niched. And from what we have with the overnight fasting type studies, it's best if you can try to do the workout in the morning and eat in the morning or up until about 4 or 5 p.m. I hope that clears everything up. I don't want people who are doing later eating to feel like they're left out. If you want to work out later because of time schedules, that's the best system for you because it's the best system that works within your life pattern. So that's all you got to worry about, really. This is just to try to optimize everything as much as you can. Also, you want to make sure that you're walking brisk or above, so either power walking or just brisk walk. You don't really want to stroll because you want to get more out of your workout in a shorter amount of time. You'll just burn more calories if you're walking from brisk to power walk as opposed to strolling, and you're shortening the time. Like if you want to do something, like if you want to do a 45-minute walk as opposed to an hour and 30 minutes, you can get an efficient burn with a 45-minute walk that's brisk or above. Of course, the more stress you put on, as I mentioned in the other video, going uphill, elevation, finding steps that you can go up, all of these things help you burn more calories while you walk. That's it. This video is pretty quick, simple, not too crazy. I know you guys wanted me to talk about intermittent fasting with walking, and this is the recommendations based on the scientific literature that we currently have. I am going to link below the 2018 study that looked at fasted walking versus fed walking and saw those results related to the non-esterified fatty acid enhanced burning versus the fed group. And of course, as always, guys, I want to thank my patrons for my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here.